What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte. Today, we are going to take a look at the New York Islanders and what they did in free agency, discussing the Romanov re-signing, of course, looking at some of the forward additions, a couple of additions on the back end, and even a new goalie, which might lead to some deeper conversations. We're going to discuss that here today. If you guys like this content, want to see more videos like this, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. All right, so the Islanders now have $3.5 million left in cap space. They have 5 first-round picks between this season and next season. Obviously, they've taken those 2 selections earlier already, the first overall pick and pick 16 and 17. And then next year, they have their pick and Colorado's first-round pick. There might be more of that by the time we get closer to the trade deadline next season. We'll see how things go. But looking at the Islanders' current situation, they did a nice job. I think with the circumstance of where the Islanders were at just a few weeks ago under Lou Lamoriello and kind of his departure, it's really been good stuff for the Islanders. And I think when you consider, basically from the Dobson trade to now, things have just gone really well for what the Islanders have needed to get done. They have found a way to get the right players in at the right spot, and kind of after listening to his press conference, he seems to have a pretty good pulse on where the Islanders are at and where he thinks they're capable of going maybe next season. And I think it'll be a setback season for the Islanders next year. They probably won't make the playoffs again next season, but that's okay. I think the delineation between this team, and I talked about this after the draft, how the Islanders were a team that was just good enough to maybe make the playoffs if things fell the right way, and they kind of got sucked into the playoff bubble, making it in the 7th or 8th seed, and then just getting whipped in the first round. That's been the experience of New York Islanders playoff hockey recently. So they needed to do something. And Matthew Darche comes in, finds a way to add just shoring up positions that they needed to shore up. So Dobson, you save $9 million moving out Dobson. You bring in 2 first-round picks, Emil Henneman, who is going to be a pursuit of the puck type player. He's going to be hungry for the puck. He's an agitator. He's aggressive. And he's got a really good shot. So that's the kind of stuff that the Islanders are going to be looking for. And I think you kind of see that with the Romanov signing as well. And Darche mentioned that the Islanders need to be a team that's more difficult to play against, whether that's guys just being aggressive, not being afraid to throw a big hit, and also being able to pursue the puck when you don't have it and being tough on the opponent when they have the puck. I think that's going to be a theme for the Islanders, and we've already seen that so far. And like I said, Darche even mentioned it. You kind of look at what we've done at the draft. Picking up Aitchison, picking up maybe not Eklund and Schaefer. I think they definitely went on the skill side for that. But Aitchison, Heineman. And then you take a look at keeping Alexander Romanov. And he said, I think Romanov, at 8 years, it's a big commitment. But we are getting him through the prime years of his career, right? He's 26 years old. He'll be 33 when that contract's done. You feel pretty good knowing that this is a type of player that in the prime years of his career, that you're signing him to this contract, and you're going to feel pretty good about it. Now, there's a lot of interesting details with this trade. Not so much money. It's going to be flat, $6.25 million base per season. No signing bonuses, nothing like that. But the conditions on his trade availability is going to change throughout the deal. So the first year, so between now and July 1st of next year, 2026, he will have no protection. So if the Islanders want to trade him in November, they want to trade him in January of 26, they want to trade him in June of 26, right before July 1st, the Islanders can do that. They can draft him at the draft floor next season. But after that, on July 1st, that's where the no movement kicks in for the next 7 years. So between years 2, 3, and 4, so a 3-year period, there will be a full no movement clause. So any trade that involves Alexander Romanov between the summer of 2026 to 2029, there will be no discussions of that unless he signs off on it, no matter what. Then, on July 1st of 2030 is the next time the Islanders will have some kind of flexibility that does not involve Romanov. It'll be a 16-team no trade list, 16-team no trade list on top of a no movement clause. And then for the remainder of the deal, it is a 16-team no trade list. So even with that 16-team trade list in 2030, he will still have a no movement. So even with that, it's basically a full no movement clause. I don't fully understand the dynamic of that, but that's kind of how it's written here. And then obviously for the final 3 years of this deal, from 2030 to 2033, is a 16-team no trade list, which gives a little bit more flexibility back to the Islanders if they decide to move him. So overall, I like the contract. I think it makes sense. And you look at, I think a lot of Islander fans are like, the number's a little bit high. But you consider what other guys just made on the open market. The Islanders have a guy at 25 or 26 years old through the remainder of his prime years. Yeah, it's an 8-year deal, but at 6.25, that's a lot easier to stomach than some of these guys that are in their 30s, like Gavrikov. A 7-year deal, $7 million per season. That just looks like a buyout waiting to happen. You sneeze the wrong way, there's going to be a buyout there. Cody Ceci, yeah, he's making less money, but $4.5 million for the next 4 years for a bona fide third pair defenseman. That's a lot. Brian Dumoulin, 33 years old, just got a 3-year contract to take him until he's 36, making $4 million. So you consider some of the other options that were available there, and the Islanders, they look pretty good there. Then you consider Ivan Provorov, 8-year deal, making, I think, well, maybe it's a 7-year deal, making 8 or 7 over 8, one way or the other. That's a big contract. That's more than what Romanov's making. Is Provorov that much better of a defenseman than, Romanov? I don't think so. So when you consider in that circumstance, on top of what Matthew Darche said, that the Islanders need to be more difficult to play against and aggressive. And he thinks that Romanov, with that physical presence on the blue line, definitely fits that narrative. And I think the Islanders have made a point, moving on from Dobson, choosing Romanov, and some of the decisions they made at the draft table, and bringing in Heineman, it's kind of sending a message. We are going to be difficult to play against. And the Islanders are one of the teams using that blueprint from the Florida Panthers. It's not about the size of the player, which maybe ages in a little bit. It's not necessarily about the size of the player. Is this guy a pain in the ass to play against? And is he going to pursue the puck and be aggressive and not afraid to hit and not afraid to cause problems and cause scrums? The Islanders have been notorious for that over the years. You look at the identity line, right, with Cizikas, Clutterbuck, and Matt Martin. The Islanders might be creating some of that magic in a different way here, and I think they're doing that with some of the moves that Matthew Darche has made. To kind of continue that, obviously we talked a lot about Romanov, but I think it's worth pointing out because it is a big deal. David Rittich comes in here from the Los Angeles Kings. This is one that I think a lot of Islander fans are questioning, well, what's going on and what's the status with Varlamov? Because if you're bringing in probably an NHL backup, why is that the case if we already have Varlamov and Sorokin? And Matthew Darche was very much, he was very coy on his answer and not really giving too much from the vest. I don't really like how that's looking because, listen, actions speak louder than words. If you're bringing in a guy like David Rittich, it's a 1-year deal, $1 million. Yeah, it's not like you're investing a lot. But still, that is something that I think the Islanders are concerned about it. And I think if Varlamov doesn't start in the beginning of the season, we might not see Varlamov play again. And there might be one of those things where maybe it is just precautionary. And Varlamov starts the season and then things tail off in November. Well, at least you have David Rittich. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's genuinely what the Islanders are going to do. That definitely could be on the table. Tony DeAngelo comes back, 1-year deal, 1.75. You heard about those defensive contracts I just mentioned earlier, like Ceci and Dumoulin. A lot of money for guys that I don't think are much better than Tony DeAngelo. And for a lot less money, I'll take Tony D. So I think a lot of Islander fans wanted to see him come back, wanted to see more of what he could do. I think at that price and that value per season and the length of the contract, I think it's perfect. And the Islanders are going to give him an opportunity. And worst case scenario, if things go really well, listen, you trade him at the deadline for a first round pick in the spring next year, right? And hopefully the Islanders will be able to do that with a couple of guys on this team. You look at a couple of pending UFAs for the Islanders in the fall going into next season. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, Tony DeAngelo, Anders Lee. The Islanders have a couple guys. If they want to make some changes, they want to add first-round picks into what's supposed to be a really good draft next year, and maybe even in the conversation for tanking for Gavin McKenna, that could be on the table for the Islanders next season if they decide to go down that route. I think this is a good position for Matthew Darche because he's not selling the farm. He added a lot of great players from what he's already done. He's added some guys like Jonathan Drouin, who's a 2-year deal, $4 million AAV. The only reason I like this deal is because it's a 2-year deal. The cap hit's high, but I think if Drouin can stay healthy, he could be a great addition to the Islanders. But there's also, I think, the genuine possible opposite side of that, which could be more of what we saw with Anthony Duclair. It looked like a great signing at the time, but things didn't work out. So now we don't know what's going to happen with Duclair. Is this contract signing maybe because of Duclair and Duclair maybe not coming back to the Islanders? I don't really know. We're going to probably find out more information on that closer to the beginning of next season. But, I mean, there is a world where Drouin and Duclair are on the Islanders in the fall, adding some, a playmaker in Drouin that can pass the buck to Horvat. And then you have Duclair who can play with Barzal. Like, I think that could be a really good spot for the Islanders to be in going into the fall. And I think, a point was mentioned by Darche, talking about how they added Drouin, and could we maybe see Barzal go back to the wing, or go back to center if Drouin's in the picture? And Darche definitely made it a point like, no, that might not actually be how things go. We want to have guys that are movable pieces. And he kind of mentioned how, when he was with Tampa Bay was able to do that a lot with their top 6. Very interchangeable pieces. And I think he's trying to create that with adding a guy like Drouin, who is expected to slot into the top 6. And making $4 million per season, I mean, is that a great top 6 forward? Maybe not. But I think considering the circumstance with his history of health, it makes sense. So this is a low risk, potential high reward for the Islanders if he is indeed healthy. And then obviously the last one kind of rounding out the top 6 situation is Simon Holmstrom. Signs a 2-year deal, $3.6 million per season. Again, a very low risk, potential high reward. If Holmstrom is going to be a top 6 forward, he'll get paid it in 2 years from now. In 2027, he will get a nice contract from the Islanders, hopefully. But if not, I mean, I think what's really the interesting thing, and I don't think it's by irony, I think it's definitely meant on purpose. Simon Holmstrom and Jonathan Drouin each have 2 years left on their contracts. Well, what does that mean? That gives enough time for Callum Ritchie, Cole Yzerman. It keeps those guys, Danny Nelson. It gives those guys an opportunity to develop. And when they're ready for the big club, probably in 2 years from now, if things don't work out with Drouin and Holmstrom, they can move those guys out and bring in some of the Islanders' younger forward prospects. It's definitely on the table. And I think this is a situation for the Islanders. They are in a great situation compared to where they were the beginning of this year. One of the best prospect pools in the league, especially adding Matthew Schaefer, especially adding the 2 guys that kind of fell in the draft. And then you consider the guys everybody seemingly forgot about until they remembered, oh, wow, the Islanders have Cole Yzerman. Oh, wow, Danny Nelson? Oh, wow, yeah, that guy Callum Ritchie from the Nelson trade. Things change quickly. And for the Islanders, they picked the right guy, at least right now. Matthew Darche is the guy Islanders fans wanted. They got the best GM that was available when they were going through the interview process. And as of right now, I'm happy to be an Islander fan. And I'm excited to see what else happens the rest of the offseason. I will say I would have liked to see the Islanders go after Nikolai Ehlers. But I think that's the only thing that I don't love about the Drouin thing is I would have liked to have seen maybe going for Nikolai Ehlers. And if they didn't, that would have been, the Islanders would have been at $7.5 million AAV. But then realistically, would that have been enough to bring in Nikolai Ehlers? I don't think so. But if I'm an Islander fan, I would have rather waited to sign Drouin. Like, was Drouin going to be gone on day one if the Islanders didn't sign him? I don't know about that. I think the connection to Tampa is probably a part of the reason Drouin ended up going to the Islanders too. But I remember the Islanders trying to go after Drouin years ago when he was destined to leave Tampa Bay the Islanders were one of the teams that were mentioned for Drouin at that time. So it's kind of interesting to see how things have changed over the years. And, obviously the hype around Drouin coming to the Islanders is not what it was if it could have been, a couple years back when that was on the table. But, yeah, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this content, want to see more videos like it, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe as always. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time.